Welcome back to Prepare to Read, where myself, Marcos, and my good friend Jacob guide each other on our first read-throughs of our favorite books and series. Currently, we are reading Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, where Jacob is a first-time reader, and this week we are diving deep into chapters 23 through 25.
Diving deep we are, Marcos. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I am doing pretty solid. I'm a little tired. I've been traveling a lot these past couple weeks. I think it caught up to me, and then it caught up to me even more. So, barely did my reading this morning, which is unlike me. I usually read throughout the week and take pretty in-depth notes, or like highlight and stuff like that. Didn't get to do that, but it's fresh in my mind, so I feel pretty good about it. But yeah, I'm ready to get into it if you are.
Cool. Yeah, I am too. Just first thing, I wanted to thank all the new subscribers. As of this video, we're at 38, which is more than I ever would have expected us to get. So it's super awesome you guys are out there, you're listening, and just continue to just follow along. If any of you guys are reading along with us, feel free to comment and join in on the discussion.
Yeah, sorry, Marcos, I'm gonna cut you off. Also, I don't read the comments. Marcos will send me some. But if you guys have questions for me, drop them in the comments because I would love to answer them. But I try to keep out of there, so I don't see anything that's being talked about. You did send me one last week, though, about I got something wrong with Dalinar's armor being...
Oh, yeah.
And he said
Did
that...
you go back and check on that or not yet?
I did, but, there's nothing... I don't know if he said that or she said that to be you're wrong, go check, or if they're oh, maybe you're wrong or maybe you're not, So if it's the latter version of that, I still stand by my theory. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the description wasn't enough for me to go against what I initially thought in my head. So
yeah, I'll probably, because of that comment, I think I'll email Brandon to ask him to clarify.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And, I'll let you know.
Are you sure you could just text him, He'll probably get back to you.
Yeah. No, I don't. I usually don't answer him back. So.
Yeah, send him the link right now. Maybe he can join us.
Yeah, no, I blocked him. But, okay, so diving into this, we're going to be talking about chapters 23, 24, and 25. So beginning with 23, many uses, we're back with Kaladin in Sadeas's war camp on the Shattered Plains. And we're diving a bit more into Bridge 4. So right now, Bridge 4 is on rock duty, which Kaladin without asking anybody, signed them up for. And they're finding stones, which are typically used to be soul cast into food and I suppose other things as well. And Kaladin is with Rock and Teft. And they're kind of using this rock duty as a means of getting out in the field so that they can collect something called knobweed, which is a very powerful antiseptic. And Rock, he's able to see Syl, the spren that follows Kaladin, and is able to kind of use that to very quickly find a bunch of these knobweeds, where they then could tie them into bundles and tie them to the bottom of the cart that they're using to carry these rocks around. And yeah, from here we get a couple of moments where Syl is interacting with Rock and kind of guiding him to things that are not actually knobweed, but it's just a bunch of poop. And Syl finds it really funny, but Rock doesn't find it funny. I guess it's kind of just a cultural thing of he doesn't think that's funny. And from here, Kaladin, again, being the very introspective guy that he is, he starts to reflect on this idea that he's saving these different lives and members of Bridge 4, but that they're not going to follow him and his leadership just because he's saving them if they don't see that what they're being saved for is worth living, that they have a purpose or a reason to live. So yeah, did you have any comments on that?
I have a couple comments on this chapter. So I'll say these chapters as a whole, not that they were bad or I didn't like them, but we kind of talked about it before we hit record. There wasn't as much meat on the bones to I like speculating, I like theorizing. There wasn't that much to go off on these chapters, I feel like, personally. And this one in particular, where it kind of felt like, you know, this reminded me of, Marcos, is like when you have a video game and you go to the base, right? You finally get to the base, and then you have that first side quest that's like, I need 5 plants that you can find out in this region. Can you go get them for me? Like, that was this chapter in a book. Or like that level in a book.
The fetch quest.
Yeah, like literally, like you go out there, it's like, all right, you got to go here, and you got to get these 5 objects, and then like something's in your way, so you got to either fight or like they do like sneak around and pick them up. But I still think in that it's interesting, this idea that, what's his name, Rock can see Cell, but like nobody else can, and we still don't know why, and he's not explaining to Cal why. And I also wonder if he knows why she's changing, because she is changing. Like, we kind of really haven't talked about it, but she's becoming more and more aware of herself changing and understanding humans, and you know, like this, yeah, like her previous chapter, she was asking Cal, like, hey, why do people lie? Like, why do men lie? And I forgot what she realizes in this chapter. But anyways, it's just interesting. And I wonder if Rock knows more about it than he's letting on right now, which I think he does. I think that's pretty obvious. But it's, what does he know? What do you think about me saying that this was like a fetch quest chapter? Do you agree?
I could see that a little bit in the beginning, but what I really liked in this chapter was the part where they're actually sitting down next to the chasm and just talking. It kind of reminded me of in shows or in movies when like they're going through a battle and they have that night where they're just all by the bonfire and just kind of like reflecting on things they've been through. And in this case, Kaladin, again, I think one of the strongest aspects of this book, at least for me, is Sanderson's ability to like write somebody becoming a leader and them realizing the things that need to be done to be worth following as a leader. And that's when Kaladin kind of has that realization of, hey, I need to give these guys a reason to live, but I also need to kind of set the example a bit. So that's when he starts to open up. And when he starts opening up, the other guy that's with him besides Rock, Teft, he's even like, whoa. Like, what do you do? We don't do that, you know? And I think it's their means of like coping with the situation. You know, hey, if I get close to you and tomorrow you go out and get shot, I don't want to have to deal with that grief. So we are not going to get to know each other.
Well, it's almost like
Kaladin,
it's almost like they've bought into what they've been conditioned to believe, that they're like worth nothing. So they're almost a lot of them are not even like, I don't know if everybody's a quote human, but like they're not human anymore. Like they are just, they're no different than like a donkey that's carrying, but like, you know, packs and stuff like that, or the trolls here. Like they are just a means to an end. Like you're a bridgeman. You're not even human. You're a bridgeman. And I think it's kind of like with like, you know, the Holocaust and stuff like that. They're almost stripped of like their identity to where like it like put a number on their arm and like, you know, they're reduced to a number basically. Like they would probably refer to them by like, hey, 3 or Bridge 4. Like you're just Bridge 4. You don't have a name. You're Bridge 4. So
I think you're going to come around in this chapter, because that whole aspect of him realizing that he needs to give them a reason to live is really cool. And also Rock opens up a lot, and we get this insight of like, what is Rock doing here? How did he get put in this situation? And he talks about this whole idea of his culture not having shards and wanting to come over to win a shard so that they could almost be taken seriously, and pretty much they weren't able to do that. Like they failed. And this part, that next part is also a really big moment, is when he talks about how he puts like troll poop into Sadius's food. Yeah. And that pretty much caused him to fall into a bridgeman. And that's when Teft starts to laugh. And that's like the light bulb moment for Kaladin, is like, this is what the bridgemen need. They need to sit around to talk, to get to know each other, so that they can find that reason to live. And yeah, so I thought that was cool from a world building perspective because we haven't gotten really too much information as far as Rock's culture. What is he again? He's a horn eater.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he also talks about their food. How he's like, nah, you guys don't eat good.
Yeah.
Like, this is good. And they're like, no, it's not. So.
No, I was going to say, like, that banter at the end, I really appreciate. I think it's good because it has been pretty introspective in Cal's chapters where it's a lot of in his head. And not that I don't like that, but it is a nice change of pace to have him actually talking to other humans and having conversations. So I did,
and he's kind of breaking down these walls with Rock and Tef. They're kind of like the first people he's really getting to know.
Yeah, 100%.
And from there, Tef, basically the one who was super closed off at first, he asked Kaladin, like, "Can you tell us your story? How did you become a bridgeman?" And the main takeaway was pretty much that Kaladin killed a man. Mm-hmm. And he thought it wasn't murder, and he was thanked for it by somebody important. And he's really cryptic here. He doesn't completely open up. But he basically says he is a bridgeman because the Light Eyes did not take it well when he turned down a gift. So that's kind of your theorizing aspect, is what do you think Kaladin is saying here without saying it?
Well, I was confused here. I'm not gonna lie. I even went back to that original chapter because I was like, did he kill like an officer in that first fight? You know, and I was just like, I don't know what to think. It sounds like maybe he got tricked into killing somebody, you know, or he did it, I don't know, trying to protect somebody else. I don't know. Like, I actually will say I was reading it and I was a little. Like, I don't know what to think.
Is there something you'd like to see?
What do you mean? Of like how that happened?
Like where would you like this to go? Or where do you not want it to go?
I guess based on what I'm reading right now, like, we're getting a lot of Kaladin's past. So I would like to see it relate to someone that's been in his past. Just because we've been seeing it so much. Like, I'm not saying that should be the only reason that we're seeing it is because it's going to solve this little mystery that's been put in front of us, but we are learning. We're spending a lot of time, like half of his chapters, like in this part, are chapters like take place in the past. So I don't know if I've explained it to you, but so Sanderson, when he writes the Stormlight books, each book kind of has a focus character. And in this case, Way of Kings, you probably could guess, is Kaladin's focus book. So a lot of the background, the past, the flashbacks we're getting are Kaladin. And that's just because he is the focal point of this book. So each book has a different focus character. So, yeah, in case you didn't know. But overall, this chapter, I think, while it seems a little bit slower or dry, I think it's a cool moment. I think it's a moment of them just sitting around the bonfire, getting to know each other. And it's one of the chapters where, for the first time, we're not like meeting a new character or any real major revelation is happening. We're just getting to know them in a very organic way. Like, they're sitting around and they're saying, hey man, tell me your story. Yeah.
And yeah,
that is
makes a little change of pace.
It is true. It is a change of pace. Like I said, I don't dislike anything of these chapters. It's just more so not as much meat to talk about. But I totally forgot, actually, because I read this chapter earlier in the week, that Kaladin does say about him killing that guy. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm struggling with, like, okay, is that why he got that brand? You know? And we never find out we haven't found out what that glyph on his head means. Right? I'm pretty sure we haven't. Don't say it. Don't say it. I don't think I know.
I'm pretty sure they said what it is.
I don't think I know.
It's not very profound.
I don't think I know, though. I can't remember. I'll have to look.
Do you want me to tell you? It won't
No.
like change anything really.
No.
Okay. All right, I don't want to tell you. But yeah, so this chapter, just my last thoughts are, I think it's a really nice small moment that is kind of like the root of where he's going to go next as far as his leadership. So we're just really seeing him learning how to lead these people, which are a very interesting group to lead. You know, if in like our lives, whenever we have to lead, usually you have some type of authority. You know, you have some type of reputation with these people, but he's leading like people that literally have no reason to live anymore.
Yeah, not even like, I mean, I guess the shared goal is to not die, but they don't even believe that they can do that. So it's pretty rough.
It's a tough group, tough crowd.
I want to touch on something here. So I think this is the best part to talk about it. I was reading today, and I thought about like, I go back to my high school lessons of, you know, literature or whatever those classes are called, English. And you learn about like conflict and the types of conflict that there is. And I was kind of thinking like there is no... Can you think of the antagonist in this story right now? Because I can't. Like there's...
the antagonist is the one who opposes the protagonist, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, I guess you could say to an extent, Gaft, is that his name?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't really say he's like the big picture antagonist right now. He's kind of like, he's a little obstacle. By extension, you could argue Sadius, because he's the one that's kind of putting these people into this crap situation.
No, 100%. And I think like those connections that you made are the thoughts I had. But it's like I really feel like most books, the books I read, right? Like I'm pretty sure there's a lot more literary fiction out there that's a little bit more abstract as far as, hey, who's bad and who's not. Like it's not necessarily a person or a force. But I find this book, the conflicts center around like, they're very like inner conflicts that we see in these characters, like heavy inner conflicts, like Dalinar, like struggling with like trusting himself, and like, is he seeing things that actually matter or not? And like, does he still has what it takes to do what needs to be done? And does he trust what his brother was telling him? Like those are the battles that he's facing more than like, hey, like we're out here, like, yeah, we know the Parshendi, they're fighting the Parshendi, but we like know nothing about them, and like we don't even have a point of view character or line of sight to what's going on with them. And then with Kaladin, it's like, hey man, like this guy's trying to find a will to live for a while, and then now this guy's trying to find out like, how do I give other people a will to live? And there's not like, you know, you think of Wheel of Time, and even like Wheel of Time, it's immediately you get presented to like the
big bad.
Yeah, like what do they call him? I'm blanking on the name right now. The Dark One, is that his name?
I think he has multiple things they call him.
Yeah, but like, you know, him and his little minions, kind of like Sauron in Lord of the Rings, and in Game of Thrones, the Lannisters are clearly presented to you as like, these are the bad guys. And yeah, that kind of like ebbs and flow as the story goes on, but like you know about them, and you know that they do bad things, and you have someone to point at and be like, that's the source of conflict. So I was just...
Well, it's kind of cool, but I would almost say, and I think it's kind of interesting, is we're almost trying to figure out who is the bad guy in this situation while the characters are. Like Dalinar knows we're fighting the Parshendi, but like, who is actively opposing me right now? And he's trying to figure that out. Kaladin knows, yeah, Sadius and Gaft are kind of like the ones opposing him, but he doesn't himself have like, oh, that's the big bad I need to take down. So we understand the antagonist in the story as much as the characters do.
Yeah, and I want to give props to Brandon Sanderson for that, because I think I was not expecting that in this book, to be honest. Like, not saying I had little expectations, but I was expecting this to be like, you know, oh, we have the giant eyeball or monster that's in the middle of the map, you know, whatever, that's doing all these bad things. And like, I just started thinking like, I have no idea like what's going on in this world. Like we are seeing such personal stories so far,
and it's awesome because you don't know what's to come, obviously, but having these moments and getting to know these characters in such an introspective way will make us understand them so much better later on when the big things are happening and you're like, dang, like I know how Kaladin would handle this. Or if I had to guess how Dalinar is going to handle this, I would know what to expect from him. So
yeah, so that makes me wonder, right? Like, are we going to zoom out? Are our heralds going to start being our main characters? You know, like, is that going to happen?
Who knows?
And if so, like, what does that mean for everything? Like, right now, the best way to put it is, like, we are watching the pawns move, you know, of the story. I think Kaladin and Dalinar are probably going to have a big role to play. But just...
like, you know how you got that chapter... It's crazy to think about how you got that chapter with Dalinar in his flashback, right? And that's kind of like a bit of a light bulb of like, I now understand a little bit more about what's going on. We still have several more of us to come where it's like, whoa, my entire understanding of this story is now different.
Well, I would love to have a chapter. I'm going to go back to Wheel of Time. That's like Wheel of Time in book 4, I think. Where Rand goes to, or is it
the snake people?
I think they're like fox-like people, right? In the tower, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it's like a white room, and it's just like what the hell is happening right now? Yeah.
What's going on?
Like I feel like this book series is gonna have that. You know, it's just.
You gotta keep reading.
I just know that there's so much that I don't know, and there's such a bigger scope going on with like religious undertones, like huge religious undertones that I'm picking up on, that I'm like, you know.
Well, we could probably do a whole video on just this topic, but I've mentioned to you how I feel like Stormlight truly is modern fantasy in that it is just a joining of everything from all the different major fantasy series coming together, like the characters and the grayness of some of Game of Thrones, the world building of Wheel of Time. Like we're just combining all of the strengths of those different series to make like this modern series, which I think pulls from a lot of other ones. So it's cool. I think it is the pinnacle of modern fantasy. But
we'll see. Because I will say,
yeah, you're still on book 1.
Yeah,
out of 5.
Because like right now, like recent fantasy books I've read, I gotta put Name of the Wind as my number 1. Just I had such a.
Is that recent though? When did Name of the Wind come
out? Not too recently, but as far as books I've read, like recent fantasy books I've read. So that's like if we're going, I feel like I'm like halfway through this book right now, right? So like. On the scale of, hey, how much have I enjoyed it between that one, I would still say Name of the Wind is pretty still my favorite so far.
Name of the Wind, Name of the Wind came out in 2007. Way of Kings came out in 2010. So they both came out pretty close to each other. But Name of the Wind is a tricky one because I feel like it's a little bit different of a fantasy story. It feels a lot more of like just a fiction story told in a fantasy setting. And I think there's other books that I would more closely compare to Name of the Wind than this one. So yeah, they're both fantasy, but very different approaches to a story. No. You know, Name of the Wind is much more of a character study, whereas I think this takes a little bit more of the Game of Thrones approach of like we're popping between different POVs and using that. But
yeah.
Anyways, you got anything else on this? Or are you on move chapter 24?
Let me look at my notes. I don't think I didn't have too much on this chapter.
Okay. So, moving on. Chapter 24, the Gallery of Maps. In this chapter, we're back with Dalinar in the Gallery of Maps in the Shattered Plains, and he is in the King's Gallery waiting for High Prince Royan, not sure how to say that, to come and meet him.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much trying to follow this ultimate goal of uniting the High Princes. Because as of right now, that's kind of what he generally thinks he needs to do.
Spoiler,
and the idea,
he ain't that good at it.
Yeah. So his idea is, I need to convince another high prince to do a joint plateau assault. And in doing so, kind of show the other high princes that working together can be in the best interest. But in this case, Dalinar is not thinking necessarily too politically, because this other guy, Ryan, however you say it, he doesn't have very many gem hearts. He doesn't have shard blades. He doesn't have shard plate. He pretty much is one of the smaller high princes. He doesn't really have like a name for himself. So this guy's like, why would I help you and split my potential winnings with you? And Dalinar pretty much is like, okay, I need to give this guy some sort of incentive to kind of buy him. And he pretty much promises him, I will give you a split of the gem hearts and also the first set of shard plate that we potentially win on this plateau assault. And in doing this, the guy pretty much says, okay, you know what? I'll think about it. And he leaves. So Dalinar's not really winning the politic game right now.
No, and I think Dalinar was pretty much like, nah, this guy is not going to say yes. And I think, so going back to leadership and stuff, this book reminded me a lot of situations I see in the workplace where it is so obvious. Like, people forget that, like, you know, you're whatever organization, a lot of people start getting pretty isolated in their own goals and their own interests. But if you take a step back, it's so obvious to see what needs to be done for the whole to be better. And I commend Dalinar for recognizing that, hey, this isn't working. He needs help. He can't do it. He can't do it, man. He just, like, he is failing, and it's not his place, you know? Like, he's a battlefield guy. He knows that. That's why he's going after the High Prince of War, I think is the title. But you know who he needs, Marcos? He needs Navani. That's who he needs.
His honey.
He does. I mean, she's got it, man. Like, she talked to him, and I think she knows that. She knows that he needs him. And then because his son ain't gonna do it, obviously. If you haven't talked about that yet, I'm sorry. Because
kind of a contrast to Kaladin is, while Kaladin's people have nothing to live for, they just think they're gonna die. They have no reason to live. The High Princes are an entirely different animal, because like these people, they have wealth, they have their shards, they have pride. So Dalinar, he's kind of seeing, I have to appeal to the interests of these High Princes. And that's how come he says, like, you know what? I'll give you the plate. I'll give you the gem hearts. That is not what I care about, but it's what the High Princes care about. So, well, I think, yes, Dalinar is struggling with the politics. He also has a way different type of people that he needs to lead compared to Kaladin. So, he has a different set of struggles.
I will give him, like, props for offering that shard plate and shard blade. I think that was the right move. Like, saying, hey, like, this is the most valuable thing you can have, and it'll strengthen your people. Like, have it. I don't care. I think he needs to let that go completely if he's ever going to try to convince anybody. And personally, if I was him, I would go straight for Sadius. That's who I would try to get to do a joint assault with me. Because if you can convince him, that's it. It's game over. Everybody else is, because they're like, the vibe I get, I don't know if this is true, is they're the two most powerful houses outside of the king. So I feel like if they're doing it, everybody else is going to fall in line. And it can kind of like get ahead of like how Adolin tells them, like, I think he's going to move against us with this investigation stuff, which I think that's what's going to happen, to be honest.
Sadius is definitely outplaying him in the politics.
I think so. Or maybe not completely, but it doesn't help that Dalinar has a negative reputation now because of what's going on with his visions and stuff. So he's playing from behind to begin with, and eventually, personally, I think he's going to lose his titles and stuff. I think his army is going to be stripped from him. I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, because Sadeas is in a position, and Adolin points it out, that's why he's so upset about everything, is like, Sadeas is positioning himself to where he can do some real damage to our house if he wants to. And you keep insisting on us trusting him and letting it go, and it's causing a lot of conflict between Dalinar and Adolin. And Dalinar, he hasn't really been able to open up and say, like, oh, well, this vision told me to trust Sadeas. So,
So
yeah, but Adolin does go off on Dalinar, where he's like, your hallucinations, what if you're just getting old? Like, people get old, maybe you shouldn't be in charge anymore. Like, he's pretty much losing a son, too.
Yeah, he is. Well, yes, 100%. And I think that seed is now in Adolin's mind of, like, maybe I should be in charge. You know, like, I think it's time. I don't know if that'll come to fruition or not, but it's there. Also, I have a critique. I talked about it a little bit when it first got brought up, but the horse saddle thing, I'm so over it. Like, now I see what Sanderson was like, what the end game was for this is now that we have that political drama of like, oh, is Sadeas going to use that against them if he finds something, or does he even need to find something to use it against them? But like, I wish in the earlier chapters we would have just found out like, oh no, like it, like Dalinar and Adolin being like confident that like, no, this wasn't, like, it was just a mess up. Like, the thing wore out and it was a freak accident. Like, because then you can still have that drama of Sadeas coming around and being like, oh, but like you say it is, but do I say it is? You know, instead of like, well, for 4 chapters, like, oh, is it cut? Is it not? Like, I just felt like it was so artificial of intrigue, and it's one of the few shortcomings of this book. Kinda, I guess. Actually, personally, I don't even know what a MacGuffin means, so.
Just like something you throw in there that you can make it do whatever needs to happen to move the plot.
Oh, well then, yeah, because it would just like, it was so obvious that, oh, not so obvious, but it was fabricated intrigue for me that I just wasn't about. So
I don't mind it. I think it's just the seed, like you said, for the political intrigue, because now where things are at, I don't think it matters
if it was cut or not. If it was
cut, who it was cut by. Adolin's pointing it out. Look, the fact that he is entering your war camp to investigate immediately affects your reputation and the way people view you. Like, it does not matter anymore. And so, yeah, I think we're a little bit past that already. I don't think it really matters too much anymore as far as the politics and its impact on the other High Princes. But, yeah, we just got to see where it goes. I don't mind it too much, though. It's fine to me.
So how would you go about converting people to your cause if you were Dalinar?
Oh, Iron Fist.
Yeah,
I would just tell them, I am the High Prince of War now. No, I wouldn't do that. I would definitely, kind of like you brought up, bring in somebody that I know has a strength in the political game, like Navani, that can kind of complement my weakness. So my wife is a PR person, and I like to ask her whenever there's kind of PR crises in, like with companies or in TV shows and movies, I'll ask her like, how should they handle this as far as like a PR standpoint? Because what Dalinar is struggling with right now is bad PR. There's rumors, there's people that are creating these stories, and he is not on the front of that. He's letting these rumors run, and it's causing a bunch of issues for him. So to an extent, I would almost say Dalinar needs to own up to these visions. He needs to let people know what's going on, what they're doing, how they're affecting things, if they are at all. And he needs to stop letting other people move the story in the direction they want to. Because right now, everything's out of his control. You know, everybody's spreading these rumors of these visions. Everybody's speculating now about who cut the saddle in his war camp. And yeah, he needs to get on top of the story around him.
Look at you. So he should do like have you seen 8 Mile? You've seen 8 Mile. Yeah, I know you have.
No, a long time ago.
So he should do the Eminem thing.
He should do a rap battle?
Yeah, he comes out with Sadeas and he says like, I have visions. I'm going crazy. But what do you have, Sadeas? You wear dresses. But no.
Yeah, I think that would fix it.
Definitely. That's exactly what they need at the feast. I also think Navani could help him, but also I still think the wit has some sort of interest in Dalinar, and if it's for ulterior motives or not, like I think he could help him. He obviously observes things very well, and I feel like he could tell him who is trustworthy or not, to be honest.
Well, one thing, I agree. I do think the wit could be helpful. But with Navani, we don't really know too much about Navani as far as her social standing. Like how serious people take her, if they would listen to her. We really don't know anything about that just yet. Because we got introduced to her, but we haven't got anything more with her.
I don't think that matters, though. Because what she could be is an advisor. And they talk about all the time, like, needs a scribe or whatever. Whatever that means. I actually don't. Like, I know that I only know so much about the scribe stuff, but I feel like that's being hinted a lot, and like it's always a woman. Navani obviously has some interest in him from the last chapter, or she's making him think that she has interest in him, and he obviously has interest in her. But she, like, you could tell she got it, you know, like she gets the politics. She saw how Elhokar was, called it out. I think she could be an asset for him. Mm-hmm. Maybe in more ways than one. I don't know. That's up to him and them.
We'll find out.
I also wanted to talk about in this chapter that I feel like I should understand soul casting, but I don't. Because for some reason in my head, I thought they only worked with rocks, but then they start talking about parchment here. And I know there's different magic that goes on here, not what goes on, but I've seen different names pop up, like Dustbringers and the Thrill thing that I brought up last week, and like soul casting. Like, I don't really, like, I've heard a lot of talk about Brandon Sanderson's magic systems and that you like understand how they work. And I did read like those first 5 chapters in Mistborn where he goes into great detail on how
Mistborn has an awesome magic system.
Yeah, and he gives you like the freaking 1st and 7th law of metal dynamics. He derives the equations for you on the page.
I won't say much on soul casting. I'm just not going to talk about it. Just keep reading, because I guess I would say there's a character that's kind of their thing. So we'll learn about that when we're with that character.
Shallan?
Right now, it really doesn't matter too much. Dude, I was thinking about that. I was like, we have not even read a chapter of Shallan in how long? Like
forever.
Yeah, dude. I don't remember. She might come back.
No, I did see she's in one of the other parts. I was looking through the table of contents and then like flipped ahead a little bit, guys. Shallan. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, can't wait.
Give us a good giggle.
I like her though. I like her. She's just not funny.
Maybe that's the funny part, is that she's just not funny.
Maybe. We'll see how long that can last. But yeah, so I just like noticed, I was like, I don't get it, you know, I don't understand. And then,
because it is kind of a drawback of this series, I would say, not a critique, but just this first book is so long, and for you to really understand what's going on, it takes a commitment. You know, you can't just read a couple pages and be like, I know what this is about. I don't need to read it. Like, you are halfway through this book, and there is so much you still do not understand. So, yeah, some people might not like that. But I think if you're reading epic fantasy, it's probably something you like.
Yeah, no. It comes with the territory. It's just a part of the genre. So, no,
I wouldn't recommend this as somebody's first book, but
I'm not against it. It's just like I'm realizing like, oh, I don't really know it. And I like to be drip fed stuff. Like, if you can't tell by now, like, I love thinking about what does this mean and where is that going to come up, and is this being shown to me because it's important, or is it just a minor detail? And like, I like getting into the weeds of all that stuff.
And it works great for discussion because we're able to come together and read and speculate. So
definitely. So I do have another thing to talk about in this chapter, and I can't remember if I brought it up before, but I know I had the thought before. I think the Parshendi are luring them out, and we learn about this the tower here that the Parshendi have that nobody can, like Alethi have tried to assault it, I believe, if I'm understanding this correctly. Because I was surprised we didn't get a map at the end of this chapter. I thought, like, we've gotten a couple maps now. But whatever, right? So I think, like, we have no information on the Parshendi. We have no idea what they were doing. I don't think their plan was that they were going to kill the king and get away with it. I think they wanted them to come here. They knew they were going to assault them. And I think whatever this happens with, I think they're going to get more aggressive, right? Like Dalinar kind of wants. And I do think that they're going to assault like that central location. And I think when we get there, we're going to have a big moment in the story. So I just think, I'm calling that right now. Parshendi are buying their time, and they're waiting for the Alethi to screw up.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll find out more as we keep reading. Because, up to now, the Parshendi have really just kind of been a name. We know they're out there. We know they're a faction, but we haven't really learned much.
We also find out that they also have shard bearers, which I didn't know before. And they do have shard bearers, which is interesting. I thought they were like for whatever reason, I thought they were like new kids on the blocks, like aliens that fell out of the sky or something relatively recently, and that the shard blades have been here forever, or like they're old, so I didn't think that they would have some, but I was wrong. So that was another learning.
Yeah. Cool. Well, moving on to chapter 25, The Butcher. So we're back with Kaladin in another flashback 7 years ago to his hometown of Hearthstone. And right here we are getting the incoming Bright Lord, Wistio, who is going to be taking over after... what's the name of the girl he likes again? Laurel's dad died.
Yeah, Laurel.
Yeah.
Laurel.
So from here, they're going to town.
I think Wistio was the old Bright Lord.
Oh, yeah. Wistio was... Yeah, you are right. The new one is Bright Lord Rashon.
We just lost like 20 views right now. I hope you know that. Thanks a lot. There go all our subscribers that we worked for.
Yeah.
Darn. You asshole.
Brandon's going to call.
He is.
He's going to be like, if you're going to talk about my book, you better read it. Anyway, so... yeah. So, after the death of Bright Lord Wistio and Bright Lord Rashon is now coming into town, Kaladin and his mother, Hesina, are kind of discussing how people just pretty much smack talk Kaladin's dad all the time. And Kaladin is like, why do they do this? Why do they not treat him with respect? And the mom pretty much tells him, like, well, people are afraid of what they don't understand, you know? Like, he goes and chops people open when they could just go and buy a charm that is a lot easier to accept if it doesn't work compared to, oh, your dad killed my kid because he didn't save him. And these little moments, I think, just add more layers to Kaladin and kind of who he ended up becoming. And it also shows Kaladin's dad and the kind of guy that he was and how he raised Kaladin. But that conversation is cut short when the new city lord arrives. And Kaladin, he's pretty excited to like finally see a real light-eyed hero. But he realizes that Rashon is wearing like a dress. He's kind of caught off guard of like, oh, don't meet your heroes, you know. And also that Rashon is slightly overweight. And he's just really confused about like, this isn't who this should be. And I like how they described Rashon kind of opening the door and being like, screw this.
Yeah.
And just shutting it. And
bunch
everybody's
of plebs.
like, yeah, everybody is probably like, dang, like, we got a bad one. This is not going to go good.
Definitely.
And, yeah, Lirin kind of calls out a Rashon and tries to be the good guy to be like, hey, I'll show you around, you know, I'll show you the town. And he's like, nah, man, like, it's your fault that I am here. And yeah, after that, he just closes up and rides off. And they kind of just leave the town there kind of thinking, man, I don't know about this new city lord. So And yeah, pretty simple chapter. Just more, I think, of Kaladin's backstory.
I got a couple things that I noticed. And you... Alright, here we go. So we meet Cal's mom in this chapter, which she hasn't been in the chapters before, which I thought was kind of interesting, actually. And now she is. Yeah, cool name. Like that name. Really cool name. She's also tall. I always think it's weird that Kaladin refers to his parents by their first names in his head. Like, I'm trying to think now of, like, I can't even remember, like, other books I've read, if when they're describing their parents, if they say them by the first name, or if they just say, like, mom and dad, or my mom and, you know, or, like, Kaladin's dad. It throws me off every time. Like, I'm even thinking, like, are they, like, adopted parents? You know? Because, like, I've just... I don't know. There's not too many people I know that refer to their parents by their first name. But we do learn a lot about here. I would feel like more than we've learned about his father. Like, we know his father's a surgeon, but, like, we learn more so of how his mother sees the world in this chapter. And one of the things I wanted to point out was she kind of hints to him, like, hey, you know, if you become a respectable surgeon and, like, you can attract the attention of a poorer light eyes, and, you know, who knows? And Kaladin was like, wait a minute.
You're trying to sell me off.
Yeah, have you been trying to, like, is that why you've been encouraging me to go play with that girl? And she's like, I mean, maybe, yeah. And I was just like, damn.
Kind of a little gray area, huh?
Yeah, I was like, damn. And, like, Kaladin even says, he's like, I don't know how to feel about that. Like, that's pretty wild, man. Like, she was straight up just like, yeah, like, you could have, you know, moved up the chain. Not him necessarily, I guess. I don't know how that, like, he kind of talks about how it works, but not really. And then, like, if his kids were light eyes, then yeah, they'd be light eyes. But yeah, so I was just like, damn, that's hardcore. Like, that was intense. She's also, like, seems...
That's a pretty kind of harsh reality of the world when Kaladin was saying, like, my kids could be born light eyes and be really well set, or they could be dark eyes.
Yeah, but then it is interesting that what he brings up is they could outrank me. That was...
because of the nuns and all that.
Yeah, that was an interesting, like, thought, you know, because it's like, oh, he's not worried about them being not light eyes. He's like, how am I going to feel if they outrank me? We've seen how far he comes, I feel like, right? Like, he doesn't seem like he would have that thought now. But who knows? Maybe I read that wrong. But I thought that was interesting. His mother also seems to be very, like, level-headed, where the father doesn't. Like, the father gets pretty, you know, anxious about, like, the new Bright Lord coming and all this stuff, and she's like, it'll be fine, like, don't worry about it. And she even makes a joke when it goes awful, like, oh, did we throw our king or queen? Like, when obviously it went awful.
Yeah,
but no, she's interesting. I hope we get more of her, because I don't know, I really enjoy characters that kind of, like, throw me for a loop. And that comment about, you know, trying to set him up with the Bright Lord's daughter was very interesting. Not what I was expecting.
Cool.
We also talk about the glyphs and stuff like that, and I think that was a very interesting observation of her to say, like, hey, you know what? It's easy for people to put their belief and faith, and if it doesn't work, like, oh, well, it just wasn't meant to be. And I think you can see that. I think it was a very real comment of, like, why they blame the father, because they actually have someone to blame. Like, he is going out here and doing this. And I think we get this story now, and we get that comment now because Kaladin is trying to be the one that's like, hey, I'll keep you guys alive on Bridge 4. And because he's doing that, if he doesn't keep them alive, they will blame him for not keeping them alive.
Yeah.
So he's, like, put himself in the position of his father, where he's taking ownership and responsibility for it and can actually help. So, like, if someone gets hurt now too, because he's going out to help people now. If they don't die, like, people are gonna say, well, you didn't save him. They're not gonna say, well, oh, he was a bridgeman, you know, like, that's what happens.
And I think his story's kind of on the path of getting to the part where he's like, I can't carry everything. I can't be responsible for everybody's life and for everybody, taking care of all of them. And I think the natural progression would be for it to get to that point.
So yeah, that's good stuff. I like this. I like this chapter a lot, to be honest. It was. I don't always love flashbacks, but this one has been good.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I don't have much else to say on this section. Did you have any last comments you want to add?
I do have a couple. So one of them, I went back. Right, I'm obsessed with these. What I thought were letters of correspondence going back to each other at the beginning of each part in this book. And then I was like, you know what? Let me go back to the beginning where they start, which was at the start of part 2. And I think I figured out that it's not one letter and then someone responding and then someone responding, or like, you know, sending it to someone else and then someone sending it to someone else. I think this is all one big letter that's being written to somebody, because I started like reading them and like, oh, this is all the same thing. So yeah, like I won't put my thoughts out yet until we've probably finished part 3, because I am like reading into it and stuff. But I'm pretty sure that that's what's going on. I think someone wrote it like, old friend, I hope this finds you well. Though as you are now essentially immortal, I would guess that wellness on your part is something of a given. And I think that that just continues off from there. Yeah, so I'm excited to read the chapters, to read these epigraphs or whatever they're called. I forget what they're called. I don't know. Whatever. Little interlude things, pre-chapter text. And see who's writing who or why they're writing who. I really feel like these are a door into the bigger picture that we were talking about. And yeah, I'm looking at chapter 26 ones, and it's got some good stuff in there. So I'm looking forward to talk about it. But no, overall, liked these chapters. Didn't have too much to talk about, I'm telling you. But also, I feel like I have an understanding of the themes of this story, and I think we've really bought into like, hey, leadership and leading people is a big part of this book. So now I can see that, and I feel like I see the trajectories of where these characters, quote, should be going. But I'm ready for shit to hit the fan, I will say. I'm starting to get like, all right, we're halfway through the book. Not saying it's slow now, because it's picked up a lot since part 1, but like, I want the needle to drop. I need the needle to drop for this book to like go up a level for me. So I'm looking for that soon.
Yeah, I don't really remember from here how things exactly play out. So,
all right. Well, cool. That's all I have to say on these.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. If you're still out there listening, please comment down below what your thoughts are, or if you want to point out something we didn't catch, or maybe we aren't analyzing it properly, like we're missing something. Feel free to chime in on that too. But next episode, we're hoping to finish out part 2 of the book and discuss it then. So see you guys on the next episode.
Adios.